Emma stood in the crowded cafe, her fingers gently tracing the rim of her coffee cup. The air was thick with chatter and the smell of freshly baked pastries when she heard that name. A name that just a few months ago would have meant nothing to her. Now it boiled her blood. The girl sitting at the next table gushed. Caleb Anderson is in town. Emma rolled her eyes, the gesture instinctive and sharp. Caleb Anderson, famous actor, golden boy of Hollywood, had turned her world upside down. Just 6 months ago they had shared a laugh over dinner, his charm as irresistible as his smile. But that was before his world took center stage and their quiet moments were replaced with flashing cameras and endless gossip. She took a deep breath, trying to shake off the memories. The cafe was her sanctuary, somewhere she could escape the noise of the outside world, but not today. Emma grabbed her coat and headed for the door. She needed fresh air. As she stepped outside, the cool breeze hit her like a jolt. The street was lined with reporters, cameras poised, flashbulbs ready to capture the next big scoop. Emma, a voice called out, jarring her thoughts. She turned, surprised. There was Noah, a journalist from the local magazine she sometimes worked with. He was nearby, looking more excited than usual. "Hey Noah," she replied, forcing a smile despite her irritation. He grinned, eyes bright with anticipation. She frowned, not entirely sure what he meant. Caleb's film launch, everyone is buzzing about it. Emma shook her head. The idea of facing that crowd made her stomach turn. "No, definitely not. Come on, Emma, it's a big deal. You were part of his life once." Noah pressed. His question hung in the air, and in that moment she didn't know what to say. Did she want to see how it unfolded? Part of her did, but the other part wanted to forget. Caleb had promised her a future, a life painted in laughter and dreams, but his rise to fame had shown her a side that felt so distant now. "Not really," she muttered, turning to leave. Noah called, his voice slightly louder now, as a group of fans surged toward the cafe door. "Emma, just once." As if on cue, the crowd erupted with excitement, shouting his name, Caleb, Caleb. She felt her heart race, memories flooding back in an instant. The way he once looked at her like she was the only person in the room. But those moments felt lost, locked away in the past. Suddenly there he was. Caleb stepped out of the sleek black car, his presence commanding. Dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, he owned the spotlight, his smile dazzling as it lit up the entire street. Reporters scrambled forward, eager for a quote, a picture, anything that would make headlines. In that moment, Emma felt a mix of emotions, the anger, the longing, the heartbreak all crashing together like a wave. She didn't want to look, but the gravitational pull was undeniable. She was caught. As Caleb approached the crowd, his eyes scanned the faces until they locked onto hers. Time seemed to stop as he recognized her. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, followed swiftly by a warm smile. Emma's breath hitched in her throat. How could he still have this effect on her? She felt unsteady, caught in a whirlwind of nostalgia and regret. He called, his voice vibrant, cutting through the clamor. The world around them faded, her heartbeat sinking with the thunderous drum of expectation. She forced herself to smile, but it felt fragile. "It's been a while, Caleb," she said, her voice steady but cold. "You look great," he replied earnestly, stepping closer. "Thanks," she managed, keeping her expression neutral. Inside, she was a storm of confusion. Then, just as quickly as it had happened, the spell broke. Fans stretched their arms for him, the media began shouting questions. The brightness of his world swallowed him whole, and Emma stood off to the side, a spectator now in a life they once shared. One reporter shouted. Caleb's gaze flickered between her and the crowd, taking in the question. His smile dimmed slightly, but he was quick with a response. "We're just friends." The words stung as if a knife had cut through her, old wounds reopening. "Great friends," she whispered to herself, the irony thick in the air. He had been more than that. Emma turned, anger sparking in her chest. Who was he to play it cool? They weren't friends in the way he made it sound. They had built a life together, even if it felt like a dream now. As she stalked away, every step felt heavy, weighed down by the memories, their plans for the future, the laughter, the quiet moments beneath the stars. Noah called again, his voice chasing her down the street. "Wait up," she halted, turning slowly to face him. "What's the matter, really?" She gestured wildly back toward the cafe, toward Caleb and the frenzy that surrounded him. It felt unfair. That wasn't just a breakup, Noah. Noah studied her, concern etched on his face. "I thought you were over him." "Maybe I was," she replied softly. Silence fell between them, the sound of the crowd fading into the background. Noah asked gently. Emma's heart twisted. She didn't need to think hard. Fame had taken Caleb far away from her, almost to another world, but had it changed him too? "I just wish it all could have been different," she said, her voice cracking slightly. She blinked, caught off guard. Her heart raced. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. How could he? Noah took a step closer, his voice lower. Emma looked down the street where Caleb was happily signing autographs, engaging with fans, living a life she once knew. She felt torn, the noise and excitement of the world enveloping him while she stood alone on the sidelines. Something inside her began to stir. Maybe it was the chance that underneath the glitz and glamour, Caleb was searching for something too. She muttered. "Then you owe it to yourself to find out," Noah urged, a spark of encouragement in his eyes. Fingers trembling, she took a deep breath. "What if he just sees me as a memory? Or maybe something more," Noah replied softly, gesturing back. For the first time, she stepped toward the crowd, her heart pounding harder with every step. The thrumming tension hung in the air like a promise. As she watched Caleb smile at his fans, she felt that unmistakable pull like a magnet drawing her closer to the very things she'd been trying to escape. "Do it," Noah whispered beside her, offering an encouraging nod. As she reached them, the chaos swirled around her, but she focused hard on Caleb. He laughed and chatted, but the moment his eyes found hers again, the world fell silent. "Emma," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. Time slowed, and for the first time she saw a flash of uncertainty in his eyes. I wanted to see you," she managed, heart racing. He stepped closer, and for a moment it was just the two of them standing amidst the chaos. "Really? Yes, after everything," she replied, her voice steady, no longer fragile. "I realized I miss you, Caleb." For a second, something flickered in his expression, a mix of surprise and something deeper, perhaps longing. "I miss you too," he admitted quietly, sincerity glowing in his eyes. The cameras flashed around them, but in that moment they shared a truth that felt profound. She could see it in him beyond the glitz, behind the fame. There was still a boy who had wanted to build a life with her, someone who might still want to dream alongside her. Reporters shouted questions. Emma stepped forward, breathing in courage. "Caleb, this chaos, it doesn't define us." He nodded slowly, taking in her words. "You're right." And just like that, the air around them crackled with uncertainty and possibility. No longer were they just a name and a memory. They were Emma and Caleb, two familiar souls reuniting amidst the storm. In that moment, surrounded by flashing lights and the pressing crowds, they were no longer just people caught in a whirlwind. They were stepping into a new chapter, ready to write their own story together. The moment Jenna rolled her eyes at the mention of his name, the weight of her decision tumbled into view. "You have to be kidding me," she said, her voice laced with disbelief. Just days ago, she and Jamie had shared memories that danced on the edge of laughter, but now as she listened to her colleague chat excitedly about his latest project, the name Jamie Martinez felt like a bitter pill lodged in her throat. It wasn't just that Jamie had become the it boy of Hollywood. It was everything that came with it: red carpets, bright lights, and a whirlwind of attention that threatened to swallow all the moments they had cherished. Jenna had once thought he was different, someone who could carve out a space for them both amid the chaos. But the reality was heavier than she could bear. She was sitting in a small, vibrant café, a quiet corner she had claimed as her own. It was the kind of place that hummed with warmth, wrapped in the aroma of fresh coffee and sweet pastries. But today an unsettling tension hung in the air. Outside, the sun poured through the windows, but her heart felt clouded. Jenna, her friend Mia, leaned closer, her eyes sparkling with excitement. A low groan escaped Jenna's lips. "Yeah, huge, come on." "You used to love this stuff," Mia scolded, nudging her playfully. "Because I know how it ends, Mia," Jenna replied, staring intently at her cup. The steam curled up, mirroring the weight of her thoughts. She could still vividly remember the first time they met. An indie film festival bustling with energy, vibrant voices blending together as they laughed at the silly antics of aspiring actors. Jamie had been charming, effortless even. But every time people responded to his talent, every buzz and every whispered compliment, she felt herself stepping further away, losing him to a world that cared more for performances than reality. Mia sighed dramatically. "You make it sound like a circus. He's living his dream, Jenna." And there it was, a soft echo of guilt wrapped in her friend's words. Did she want to be happy for him? Part of her did. She wanted to cheer him on, to bask in the glow of his success. But the other part felt overshadowed, unable to share space with the persona he had built. As if on cue, Jenna noticed the hushed whispers building outside. A swell of excitement rippled through the cafe. Jenna shifted in her seat, unease settling deep in her stomach. The reflection of bright lights and cameras flickered against the window, and suddenly she felt trapped in her own skin. "This is going to be a circus," she muttered under her breath, just as a murmur danced through the crowd. The door swung open with dramatic flair, bringing a gust of cool air along with it. And there he was, Jamie Martinez, the boy she used to know, now draped in a neat suit and a smile that brightened the room in an instant. The crowd outside erupted into a frenzy, flashbulbs popping like champagne corks. Fans raised posters, eager to catch a glimpse of their superstar. Jenna's heart raced, battling between nostalgia and incredulity. With each step he took, he seemed to glow with an energy that felt foreign to her. She wanted to look away, to shut out the chaos. Instead, her gaze locked onto him, drawn by a magnetic pull that had never quite loosened its grip. Inside the cafe, Mia's eyes shimmered with glee. "He's even more handsome in person," she remarked, half mesmerized. "I wouldn't know," Jenna replied dryly, folding her arms across her chest, but her words felt hollow as she watched him through the glass. Suddenly, the warmth of her coffee felt uncomfortably cold against her palm. "Jenna, what are you doing?" Mia urged, nudging her toward the door. The thought of stepping into that chaos sent a shiver through Jenna. "I can't just join a sea of screaming fans, Mia," she argued. Yet, the moment stretched, the pull, the hesitation. She felt like she was in a movie scene where the protagonist is faced with a choice that could alter everything. And there it was, the flicker of possibility. Then, like a whirlwind, her phone buzzed with a familiar tone, a message from Jamie. "Hey, you at the cafe?" Just seeing his name made her insides twist. Was he really reaching out, genuine and unguarded amid the frenzy? Taking a deep breath, Jenna peeked outside again, heart pounding. The crowd was electric. Jamie's voice blended with the chatter, laughter bubbling forth, as if he was effortlessly inviting warmth into the world around him. But was it really warmth, or was he merely playing a role? Mia's hand on her shoulder snapped her back. "Jenna, this is your chance." In that moment, all the memories rushed back, the late-night talks, the shared dreams, the laughter that had felt so real. She couldn't just watch from the sidelines anymore. What she felt for him was raw, even if it had morphed in places, but she had to confront it. Jenna stood abruptly, surprising even herself. "I'm going," she stated, her voice steady. Mia asked, eyes wide with excitement and disbelief. "Yes," Jenna said, determination flooding her veins. She pushed through the door into the world outside, where the bulldozing sound of the crowd enveloped her. The flash of cameras swarmed through the air, bright and blinding. In the distance, Jamie turned at the sound of the crowd's cheer, and when his eyes found her, the world fell away. She could almost hear the collective gasp as he broke away from his fans, weaving through the swarm toward her. His voice cut through the noise, a thread of familiarity in the whirlwind. "I didn't know if you'd come." "I guess I was, but I'm not avoiding you anymore," she replied, battling the flutter in her chest. "For a while I thought I lost you completely," Jamie said, his voice softening. With the noise around them, it felt like they were in their own little bubble. "That's ironic coming from you, the star everyone chases," she shot back, but there was no heat in it. Her heart recognized the softness behind his bravado, the warmth that still tied them together. "I never wanted to be just a star," he said, taking a step closer. His sincerity ignited something deep within her. She had kept that flame burning, a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, he still cared. She began, her voice steady. "I thought you were different." Jamie nodded, an understanding dawning in his eyes. "I thought if I succeeded, it would validate everything our dreams." For the first time, Jenna sensed the cracks in his carefully constructed facade. A glimpse of the Jamie she used to know broke through the actor in the spotlight. "I don't want to be just a part of your life when it's convenient," she said, feeling passionate. He chuckled softly, but it was unguarded, genuine. "Then let's be real beyond the glitz. It's easy to forget who you are in all this madness. But you've always been my anchor, Jenna." Tension crackled around them, a sharp realization unfolding. Maybe they could recapture that warmth, harness it amid the chaos. Maybe they could redefine what they wanted their relationship to be. And then, just like that, the noise came rushing back, a reminder that the world wasn't going to slow down. Fans continued calling him, the lights flashing, but none of that seemed to penetrate their moment. A reporter shouted, breaking the spell, "Jamie, who's this?" Jenna's stomach twisted at the question. Suddenly, the world was eager to shape their story for them, thrusting them back into the headlines. Jamie smiled, his confidence shrouding them in that glow again. "This is Jenna." The words rolled off his tongue with such simplicity, capturing a relationship that felt layered and complex. But how far could they go? Would the spotlight overshadow the honesty they shared? "I want more than that," Jenna said, her voice gaining strength. He stepped even closer, the noise around them fading once again. "Then let's do it together," he pledged. In that moment, Jenna felt their connection extend beyond the flashing lights, beyond the chaos. It was a bond bathed in sincerity, ready to take on the world. And she didn't just want to be a memory in his past. She was ready to build a future alongside him, not just in the lead-up to glitzy events, but in the quiet aftermath too. With the media swirling around them, their hearts beat to a rhythm that was solely theirs, two souls ready to redefine love amid the tumult of life, drenched in possibility. What lay ahead was uncertain, but Jenna felt brave, standing firmly in the light of Jamie's presence, and together they took their first step into a new chapter they would write for themselves. Jenna rolled her eyes at the mere mention of his name, a reaction so instinctual that it startled even her. "Oh, please, not again," she whispered under her breath as her colleague gushed about Jamie Ramirez, the latest heartthrob of Hollywood. The name hung in the air, and the weight of it pressed down on her chest. Just a few months ago, Jenna couldn't wait to tell everyone about her boyfriend, the genuine, funny guy whose laughter lit up a room. But now his name sparked an avalanche of feelings she didn't know how to sort through. She sat in the corner of a busy cafe, the hum of voices around her fading into a dull roar. The rich scent of coffee filled the air, mingling with the sweet notes of pastries that made her stomach grumble. But that morning, Jenna was too distracted by the way Jamie's fame had eclipsed the warmth of their shared moments, turning something once vibrant into an echo of what it had been. Mia leaned closer, her excitement palpable. "His new movie is getting rave reviews." Jenna shook her head, feeling the heat rise in her cheeks. "I think I'm done with all that," she muttered, her voice thick with restraint. "Just," Mia raised an eyebrow. "Too much? You mean too much like those intimate dinners we used to have, the quiet nights watching movies?" But Jenna could only think of the bright lights, the flashing cameras, the way Jamie had changed. Suddenly, he wasn't just her Jamie anymore. He was a brand, a persona plastered on magazine covers. The boy she met at a small film festival, laughing over buttered popcorn, seemed lost somewhere in the whirlwind of his newfound fame. As if summoned by her thoughts, the door swung open and a rush of cool air swept into the cafe. Jenna's heart raced as she saw him. Jamie stood there, smiling with the radiance of a star full of charm and laughter. He waved at some fans gathered outside, and she felt a mix of disbelief and anger bubble inside her. Look at him," she scoffed, crossing her arms in defiance. Mia followed her gaze. "He's just being friendly, Jenna." But it was more than that. It was the way he seemed to thrive under the spotlight, as if being adored was the air he breathed. Jenna felt like a ghost in the shadows, haunting a life that used to be theirs. Jamie had always wanted this, but now it felt like it was pulling him away from her. A distance that started as a small crack and had erupted into a chasm. Suddenly, a group of fans burst through the door, laughter and chatter blending into a chaotic symphony. They called out his name like it was a magic spell that brought him closer. Jenna clutched her cup, feeling the porcelain press against her palm, a physical reminder of her increasing discomfort. Jamie called, his voice breaking through the din, bright and warm. She hesitated, surprise bursting through her resentment. He turned and locked eyes with her, a smile blooming on his face. That familiar spark ignited something deep within her, but moments later she felt the weight of unease crush it. "Hey," he exclaimed, sidestepping the throng of adoring fans. "Well, I didn't want to make a scene," she replied, trying to keep her voice even. "What are you talking about?" "You know you're more important to me than all of this." He gestured toward the chaos around him, his words sincere. But Jenna felt herself stiffen, her heart an uneasy prisoner caught between love and disappointment. She asked, bitterness creeping in, "Because it looks like you're pretty comfortable in this chaos. You've got a whole new world now, Jamie." The hurt flashed across his face, but he quickly masked it with understanding. "Jenna, I get it. It's overwhelming, I know. But we were building something genuine." His words hung in the air, and for a moment it felt like they had stepped back from the madness. But the moment evaporated as soon as a reporter shoved a microphone into Jamie's face, shouting questions about his recent roles and personal life. "Jamie," the reporter's voice cut through the moment, fierce and demanding. Jenna choked, feeling exposed, as if they had thrown her into a spotlight she couldn't escape. The reporter pressed, eyes wide, eager to spin a tale for the masses. Panic surged within her. This wasn't how she wanted to be defined, not as Jamie's new girlfriend or some fleeting moment in his fame. She wanted to be seen for who she was, not just a trophy next to a star. Jamie interjected, his eyes still fixed on Jenna, who felt like she was slowly unraveling. "Jenna means something to me." But even as the cameras flashed, Jenna felt the words he spoke slipping through her grasp. This was the moment she never wanted, caught between reality and the fantasy of what their relationship had become in the eyes of others. Suddenly, anger bubbled within her. She yelled over the buzzing crowd, "This isn't about headlines, it's about us." His smile faltered, replaced by a seriousness that sucked the air out of the space between them. "You don't get it, do you? I'm trying to bring you into this with me." They were standing at the crossroads, and Jenna didn't know which way to turn. Memories flickered through her mind, the late-night talks, the dreams they forged together, the plans they made under the stars. But fame had twisted their world into something unrecognizable. "Maybe you should take a moment and really think about what you want, Jamie," she replied, her voice quivering. With that, she turned away, feeling the eyes of the crowd piercing through her. She stepped back into the cafe, where comforting aromas couldn't shield her heart from the excruciating reality, a love overshadowed by fame. She could hear the murmur of voices behind her, but she wanted nothing more than to retreat back to safety. Jenna sat at her table, heart racing, head spinning with thoughts swirling around her. What if she was wrong to pull away? Would stepping back mean losing him entirely? Jenna. His voice slipped through the chaos. She couldn't bear to look. "Just give me space, Jamie," she said, her voice strained. The door to the cafe swung open and Jamie stepped in, determination etched on his face. Jenna's voice rose, defiance rising within her. Jamie interjected, frustrated yet earnest. "You think I want to drive you away? All this media hype, it's overwhelming, but I want you by my side. I need you to help me navigate all of this." His words hung in the thick air like a lifeline tossed into deep waters. Yet beneath them there was still a fear festering. Could she really step into this world? Would she be enough? But as he stood there, passion glowing in his eyes, Jenna felt something shift. The cameras, the reporters, they were just pieces of a larger puzzle. Once they had shared a bond that seemed unbreakable. Could they find their way back to that? "I want it too, Jamie," she replied, taking a hesitant step toward him. "The laughter, the late-night talks, the way we dreamt together. I don't want to be a part of this Hollywood fast track." "Then don't be," he interrupted, the sincerity of his gaze piercing through the chaos. "Be a part of my life instead. You know me better than anyone else." Tears pricked at her eyes. He was right. She had been so focused on the flashing lights, the celebrity status, that she had almost forgotten the Jamie she fell in love with. The boy with dreams and passions who didn't just want superficial adoration. "I've missed you, the real you," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. His expression softened, and in that moment the world outside faded away. They stood like two souls adrift in a turbulent sea, hoping to find a shore where they could anchor once more. "I promise to do better, to bring you along on this journey," he said earnestly. They stepped toward each other, a delicate reconnection built on honesty and vulnerability. The noise of the cafe melted into the background, and it was as if time itself had stopped. "So let's redefine all of this," Jenna said, a newfound strength pulsating through her. "Let's be us first." Jamie smiled, a sense of relief washing over him. With that, they leaned into each other, hearts beating faster, hope rekindled amid the chaos. The world outside could keep turning, but in that moment they found their footing again, ready to carve their own path through the noise. As they walked back outside, hand in hand, the cameras flashed, the fans cheered, but all that mattered was the connection they were rebuilding, step by step, in an unpredictable world. They could face the storm together, stars bound to one another, grounded in the love they had built, ready to reclaim their story. Jenna rolled her eyes at the mention of his name, a reflex born from the frustration bubbling inside her. "Oh great, just what I needed to hear," she muttered, pushing her chair back at the bustling cafe. Her friend Mia was dissecting every detail of Jamie's latest red carpet appearance, and Jenna couldn't help but feel a familiar mix of anger and sadness. There was a point when she used to love talking about Jamie, the effortless charm that had swept her off her feet. But now every time his name came up, it felt like a trap and echo of the man she once knew, lost amidst the flashing lights and the whirlwind of fame. The cafe hummed with life, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air, yet all she could focus on was the storm brewing inside her. Mia, with her infectious enthusiasm, was oblivious to Jenna's inner turmoil. "Did you see the way he smiled at the cameras?" Mia gushed, her eyes practically sparkling. "Sure," Jenna replied, leaning back in her chair, arms crossed defensively. Mia tilted her head, puzzlement etched across her face. "You're being too harsh." "Or maybe it does," Jenna snapped, the words spilling out before she could catch them. "He's not the same, Mia." The words left a bitter taste in her mouth, and she immediately regretted the weight they carried. Across the cafe, she could see couples laughing and sharing intimate moments, a reminder of what felt so distant. The warmth and affection that had once been the cornerstone of her relationship with Jamie now felt like a mirage, shimmering just out of reach. Mia suggested. The word felt hollow. "He's miles away from me now, wrapped up in his golden cage." As the minute hand on the cafe clock ticked by, Jenna felt an unseen force pulling her attention. Her gaze shifted toward the entrance, and in that instant, everything changed. A familiar figure stepped inside, radiating an energy that ignited both dread and longing in her heart. Jamie appeared, bathed in sunlight and surrounded by a group of eager fans. Flashbulbs erupted outside, blinding light bursting through the windows like confetti, illuminating everything in its path. Jamie. The crowd called, a chorus of admiration that washed over her like a tidal wave. Jenna's heart raced, emotions swirling. There he was, the boy she had laughed with over popcorn at midnight movies, transformed into this larger-than-life icon. But beneath the surface, the chilly grip of reality tightened around her throat. Mia leaned closer, excitement dancing in her voice. "You should go say hi." But as Jamie approached the cafe, charm radiating with every step, she felt the familiar urge to retreat. He shouted, a dazzling smile plastered across his face. Jenna couldn't watch. She turned away, fists clenched in her lap. Mia urged again, her enthusiasm palpable. Suddenly, Jenna lost her grip. Talk about what?" The words erupted from her like a volcano, raw and unfiltered. "No one is asking you to turn him back to some perfect ideal," Mia replied, maintaining a calm tone. "You loved him once." The suggestion hung in the air, piercing through the walls Jenna had built around her heart. Did she still love him? She turned her gaze back to Jamie, who was signing autographs, laughter bubbling effortlessly from his lips. That old spark flickered, but it was quickly doused by the shadows of her doubt. "I can't just pretend everything's fine," Jenna sighed, anxiety clawing at the edges of her heart. "The reality is." But as if hearing her thoughts, Jamie's eyes suddenly scanned the cafe, landing right on hers. A flicker of recognition swept over his face. He exclaimed, breaking away from his crowd, the chaos momentarily forgotten. Time slowed. Jenna froze, their eyes locking in an embrace that felt both comforting and suffocating. He stepped toward her, the noise of the fans around them fading to a low murmur. He asked, breathless, as if she had just appeared from a dream. "Came for the coffee," she replied, her voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of unease. The sarcasm dripped like rain, but she couldn't help it. Jamie chuckled, a mix of disbelief and something softer. Moments, a hint of bitterness seeped into her words. He stepped closer, his expression shifting to one of seriousness. "Jenna, you know that's not it. You were my anchor when all this started." The moment hung heavy in the air, laden with nostalgia and the weight of everything that had changed. Jenna's heart ached at the vulnerability in his voice. "But it feels like I can't even find you anymore," she admitted, fear rising in her throat. I've changed, yes, but I'm still the same person who fell for you," he replied earnestly, his gaze not wavering. That admission wrapped its tendrils around her heart, squeezing gently. She echoed, unsure whether to empathize or withdraw. "You have no idea how hard it is to maintain the facade," he said. "The glitz, the glamour, it's intoxicating but empty. I don't want to be just a face on a magazine cover. I want the connection we had. There it was, the truth flooding back, crashing into her like a wave. All the laughter, dreams, plans, and silly moments swirled in her mind. Jamie hadn't changed deep down, the world had changed him. and maybe, just maybe, she could fight for what they had lost together. Feeling the surge of courage, she stepped closer, lowering her voice. "What if we found a way back? I would love that," he said, hope igniting in his eyes, warmth radiating between them. "But you need to meet me halfway, Jenna." For a heartbeat, their energies mingled, an electric dance of vulnerability and readiness. Jenna felt the lingering hurt dissipate, replaced by the flicker of something deeper, a chance to reclaim what they shared. "Then let's figure out how to navigate this together. I might be scared, but I'm willing to try," she replied softly, longing surging within her. "More than anything, I want us to be real again," Jamie said, and for a moment the world outside melted away. The stars above them felt closer, and they were no longer two lost souls, but partners ready to forge a new path. Just then a commotion erupted from outside. Jenna turned instinctively, dread creeping back in. The media had swarmed, cameras flashing violently as they called out questions that hung like poisoned darts in the air. Jamie's eyes darted back to hers, the pressure building around them. Jenna felt the weight of the world crashing down, anxiety bubbling up. How could they have this moment if they were about to be consumed by the madness outside? "Let's step outside," he suggested, glancing at the door. Jenna hesitated, the world outside a storm of flashing lights and relentless questions. But staring into Jamie's eyes, she recognized the determination mirrored in his gaze, and her heart fluttered with unexpected hope. Hand in hand, they stepped toward the chaos. The moment felt monumental, the noise washing over them like a wave. They were navigating the spotlight together, and for the first time in a long while, Jenna felt free. As they emerged into the frenzy, Jamie raised his voice above the roaring crowd, a fierce warmth igniting it. The media quieted, attention shifting toward him. Jenna squeezed his hand tighter, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "There's someone you haven't seen in a while, and I want you to meet her. Jenna is not just someone on the sidelines, she's someone I care about deeply," Jamie declared, his voice strong, radiating strength. Jenna felt her heart race, nerves tumbling inside her. She was no longer the girl hiding in the shadows. She was here, standing firm beside him, not as a side story, but as a part of something beautiful. Came the calls, the cameras shifting toward her as flashbulbs illuminated their faces. "Yes, I'm here, I'm real," she said, her voice shaking at first but growing steadier with every word. "We're not just a headline or a rumor." The crowd buzzed, a mix of surprise and intrigue swirling through the air like electricity. Jamie stepped closer, a defiant grin spreading across his face. Exactly. As the questions rolled in, Jenna felt something shift. She was no longer a ghost of Jamie's past. Together, they stood firm against the world, ready to embrace whatever came next, a love reborn in the spotlight, ready to write their own story amid the chaos. In that moment, surrounded by madness, they found strength in their bond, ready to face life, love, and the unpredictable journey ahead. In those flickering lights, love sparkled defiantly, echoing with the promise of hope and the possibility of a new beginning. Jenna rolled her eyes at the mere mention of Ethan's name, a reaction so instinctive that it puzzled even her. Her friend Mia was animatedly describing Ethan's latest achievement, but the excitement only twisted Jenna's stomach tighter. This wasn't the first time they had talked about him today, and she was done. Mia was excited, her eyes sparkling as she leaned closer. "Did you see Ethan on that talk show? He's everywhere and he looks amazing." The words stung like ice water splashed on a warm day. "Yeah, well, it feels like he's living on a different planet now," Jenna replied, bitterness lacing her tone. She glanced out the cafe window, the sunny streets bustling with energy, but today that energy felt suffocating. A few months back, Jenna and Ethan were a happy couple, sharing late-night laughs and dreams for the future. But ever since his rise to stardom, she felt like she was being left behind in the shadows. It was hard to recognize him amid the whirlwind of fame and flashing lights. "It's just part of his job, Jenna," Mia insisted. "Maybe I wish he would try to be a little more like the guy I fell in love with," Jenna snapped, the frustration rising. Mia sighed, exasperation creeping into her voice. "You're holding onto a version of him that doesn't exist anymore. He's moving forward." Jenna picked at the edge of her napkin, folding it into tiny pieces, all while ignoring the storm brewing inside her. She missed Ethan in his simplest form, the goofy guy who would steal bites of her pizza and make silly puns. Now he was a brand, a persona she couldn't grasp, buried under layers of glamour that felt almost alien. "Look," Mia continued, "why don't you reach out, talk to him?" The word felt foreign, the fatigue of trying to connect overshadowing her. "What would I say? Hey, I see you become a global sensation." "You're being dramatic," Mia shot back. "Just try." As Jenna sat there, brewing in her emotions, something tugged at her attention. She noticed a growing crowd gathering outside the cafe, laughter and shouts melding into one overwhelming sound. Curiosity piqued, she turned just as a familiar figure emerged from a stylish car parked on the street. Mia exclaimed, nudging her. Her heart jumped, eyes wide as she peered through the glass, disbelief flooding her. There he was, Ethan, wearing a tailored suit, radiating confidence. He stepped out of the car, greeted by a wave of applause and cheers. The kaleidoscope of flashbulbs erupted around him, capturing every moment of his arrival. The images danced in Jenna's mind, the boy she once knew standing in stark contrast to the star he had become. Where was the man who would toss his hair back and grin goofily at her? Now he seemed so polished, so unreachable. Mia, I can't, she began, her voice wavering, but Mia was already on her feet, excitement bursting over the edges. She urged, dragging Jenna toward the door. In that moment, Jenna froze, her pulse racing in her ears. I can't. But before she could retreat further, Mia was already pushing her through the door, and suddenly the noise enveloped them. Ethan, Ethan, the crowd called, a frenzied mix of fans, reporters, and paparazzi. Jenna felt the anxiety swirl within her like a gritty storm. This was his world now, and they were just spectators lurking on the fringes. As they stepped outside, the blinding lights caught Jenna off guard, and the thrumming energy of the crowd sent a shiver down her spine. She whispered to Mia, a knot of doubt clenching her stomach. We're here for you, Mia encouraged, her voice barely audible above the chaos. And then there he was. Ethan spotted her, his eyes lighting up in a way that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. He called out, breaking away from his group with surprising ease. The crowd parted slightly like he was some sort of mythic figure stepping into reality. She managed, vocal cords tightening as emotions collided. It was surreal seeing him so close, yet feeling miles apart. When he reached her, everything else faded into a blurred backdrop. I didn't know you'd be here, he said, sincere surprise washing over his features. Jenna swallowed hard, searching for the right words, all while feeling the weight of the crowd watching them. Yeah, well, I didn't either, she said, her heart racing. His smile flickered at her jab, and for a moment the old Ethan peeked through the layers of celebrity, a small hint of vulnerability. I've missed you, he confessed, brushing his hand through his hair, an old nervous habit of his. Jenna couldn't hide the doubt in her voice, struggling against the tidal wave of memories threatening to overwhelm her. Of course, he replied earnestly, but I've been busy, she echoed, a knot tightening in her throat. Is that all? The cameras, the parties? He looked momentarily taken aback, their eyes locking, and she could see the confusion flicker in his gaze. I'm still the same person, just suddenly a group of journalists swarmed toward them, anxious voices clamoring for answers. Ethan, Jenna shifted uncomfortably, feeling like she was drowning. She was just a backdrop in his new world, a forgotten chapter of his life. Guys, hold on, Ethan said, raising his hands in an attempt to quiet the movement. Can we just take a moment? This is Jenna. The cameras snapped wildly, capturing the moment as if it were a spark kindling a fire. The world had shifted, and suddenly they were the headline everyone wanted. The girl from his past was back in the frame. A reporter shouted, leaning in with eagerness. Jenna felt the heat rise to her cheeks, every eye in the scene mistakenly focused on her. What? She stumbled, the words tumbling out clumsily. Ethan shot her a curious look, but didn't press her. Yeah, we're just reconnecting, he said, throwing in a casual smile, but tension pulsed between them. Interesting choice of words, Ethan, a journalist chimed back, eyebrows raised, nudging towards suspicion. In that moment, Jenna felt panic surge. This wasn't just about her and Ethan anymore. This was a story they were writing for others to consume. Would they even understand the tangled mess that was their relationship? A simple nod or shake could spiral into something neither of them wanted. Let's get out of here, she said suddenly, her pulse racing against the backdrop of cameras. It felt suffocating, and she couldn't breathe with the weight of everyone's expectations pressing down on her. But he hesitated, glancing back at the crowd, torn by the glimmer of flashbulbs and the warmth of her presence. Before he could respond, Jenna turned back toward the cafe, fleeing from the chaos. She didn't want to face the noise, the questions she couldn't answer. She felt like a ghost slipping back into the comfort of shadows. Ethan called, following her quickly, his voice tinged with urgency. Don't walk away. Once inside, she leaned against the cool glass, heart racing as she took in the bustling cafe. Mia looked at her with concern, but she was too far gone, drowning in emotions. Jenna shot at Ethan, frustration boiling over. He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. I wanted to claim something real, something that isn't just a headline. Understand, Jenna clenched her fists, trapped between longing and hurt. You think this is easy for me? The words escaped in a rush, fueled by the intensity of her emotions. His face fell, and Jenna could see the hurt behind the bravado. I'm not perfect, Jen, but this world, it changes you. Suddenly, her heart softened at the raw honesty that dripped from his words. He felt trapped too, just someone trying to navigate a life that had spiraled out of control. Ethan, it's not just about you. I've been trying to adjust to this new reality too. I feel forgotten. For a beat, silence enveloped them, heavy with the weight of their unspoken words. But then the shadows flickered and danced as Ethan stepped closer, vulnerability softening his features. You're anything but dust, you were my light. The sincerity of his words sent warmth flooding through Jenna, igniting the flicker of hope buried deep within her. Maybe they didn't have to throw away what they once had just because the world around them was shifting. Then let's figure this out, she said slowly, her voice steadier now. But we have to be real, no more facades, just us. I'm willing to fight for it, Ethan replied, determination filling his eyes. Together they stood on the precipice of a new beginning, each heartbeat echoing the promise of what was yet to come. As they stepped back out onto the bustling street, hand in hand, the chaos faded into the background. Media would buzz around them, questions would swirl, but they were no longer just vulnerable souls in a storm. They were partners, ready to carve a story not defined by fame, but by their unwavering connection. And as the cameras snapped and the world watched, their hearts beat in sync, fueled by love and the courage to face the unpredictable journey ahead. They would turn the tides, refusing to let anyone, whether fans or headlines, decide who they were. Together, they were ready to embrace whatever came next. As the barista shouted out the name, Jenna rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, not him again," she muttered, the words spilling out faster than she could rein them in. She was seated at her usual spot in the corner of the cafe, nursing her lukewarm coffee. Her friend Mia perched across from her, excitement radiating from every pore. Mia gushed, barely stopping for breath. "Ethan's breaking records with his new album. He's everywhere TV shows, interviews, articles." Jenna absently stirred her drink, trying to drown out the rush of emotions. Ethan was no longer just the boy she fell in love with back in high school. He was a name, a face plastered across billboards, someone she felt she barely recognized anymore. "Good for him," she replied, a touch of sarcasm underlying her words. Mia frowned, sensing that an undercurrent of bitterness ran deep. "You sound jealous. What's going on?" Jenna remarked, her voice rising slightly. The cafe buzzed around them, laughter and chatter rippling like waves across the room. But Jenna felt out of sync, like a note played in the middle of a symphony that just didn't belong. Just then, a group of fans rushed into the cafe, their excited chatter slicing through the air. They murmured among themselves, punctuating their conversation with Ethan's name. A knot tightened in Jenna's chest as her thoughts spiraled. She remembered the intimate dinners, the inside jokes, the late-night dreams they had woven together. But now it felt like those moments belonged to a distant past, drifting away like smoke in the wind. One of the fans gushed, her eyes sparkling. "Did you see his latest performance?" Another chimed in. "He's definitely come a long way since that little cafe down the street." Jenna clenched her fists on the table, each laugh and exclamation a reminder of the man who once made her heart race but now made her feel invisible. "He's just a phase for them," she said softly, her voice almost lost amid the din. Mia questioned, disbelief painted across her face. Real, that was before. The bitterness stung her own ears. She could sense Mia's frustration bubbling, ready to erupt at any moment. Jenna was tired of defending her feelings, tired of the pitying looks people often gave her when they talked about Ethan. Suddenly a voice cut through the chatter, strong and recognizable. "Hey," Jenna felt her heart leap and then plummet. There stood Ethan, looking every bit the part of the star he had become, charming smile, designer clothes, and an aura that commanded attention. But as she watched him, a wave of sadness washed over her. The fans outside erupted into cheers, cameras flashing like fireflies against the evening sky. "Ethan," they cried, their voices a chaotic mix of admiration and excitement. But instead she sat frozen, eyes glued to him as he absorbed the adoration with ease. Mia whispered, watching Ethan like a hawk. Jenna barely heard, her mind racing. To the world, he was Ethan, the artist, the star. To her, he was still just Ethan, the goofy boy who would joke about everything, even the serious things. But that boy felt lost amidst the fame. As Ethan approached the cafe, a group of reporters surged forward, their notepads and cameras poised. "Ethan," one shouted. Jenna felt the heat rise in her cheeks, embarrassment mixed with nostalgia. Memories flooded in his silly dance moves in their living room, the way he would pull her into playful arguments about which movie to watch next. But that was gone. All that was left was the manufactured glow of a star. Mia nudged her. "You should go say hi." Before Jenna could reply, Ethan's eyes caught hers, and the world around them faded into a blur. A flicker of recognition crossed his features, and her heart skipped a beat. He exclaimed, breaking away from the reporters, his voice warm and inviting. "Yeah, well, I had to see what all the fuss was about," she said, trying to keep her tone light as she stood, but the flames of anger flickered just beneath the surface. He approached, weaving through the chaos, laughter dancing in his eyes. For a moment it felt as if time had rewound. It was just them again, two old friends, a spark ignited in their connection. But that illusion quickly faded as the media clamored for attention. "Ethan," one reporter shot, her eyes darting between Jenna and Ethan, hungry for the latest angle. "She's an old friend," Ethan replied, a hint of something deeper in his voice, but Jenna felt the chill of insecurity thread through her. Jenna echoed, a sharp edge creeping into her words. Ethan's expression faltered for a moment, confusion flickering across his features. Jenna turned, her heart sinking further as she felt the eyes of the crowd on her. The lights felt blinding and she struggled to swallow the lump in her throat. He stepped closer, trying to bridge the gap that had formed, but it felt more like a chasm. "You can't just walk away from this," he said, his voice urgent yet soft. She snapped, swallowing her fear. "Or am I just part of your past image, a brief chapter before your fame?" "Jenna," Ethan replied, frustration edging his voice. "This is real for me. I didn't want to lose you to all of this." The vulnerability in his words pierced her heart, pulling her in yet again. Old feelings swirled beneath the bitterness, but she pushed back the wave of longing. "You threw yourself into this world and I was left behind. You forgot what made you." Ethan took a step back, hurt flashing across his face. "I don't want to forget, I'm trying, but it's hard with everyone looking in." She challenged, feeling the guilt gnaw at her heart. "You're a star now. You have fans, interviews, a whole team behind you. their interlude shattered as the media swarmed like bees to honey. Questions fell like rain, demanding answers, pulling Ethan further into the spotlight. Ethan, Jenna felt her stomach knot as the pressure mounted. This was what she had feared, the expectations, the personas crafted by others. Guys, give us a minute, Ethan shouted, cutting through the noise, but Jenna could only muster her breath, feeling increasingly trapped. Maybe it's best if I go, she said, her heart breaking as she turned away. His plea tugged at her heartstrings, but before she could answer, the crowd erupted again. Flashing cameras and urgent voices turned the chaotic moment into a surreal tableau. I'll call you, she murmured, stepping back into the cafe, retreating to the alley beyond, hoping to escape the frenzy. But Ethan was right behind her, relentless. Jenna, don't run away. This is just part of my life, a life I want you in. Her mind was racing. Part of her ached to stay, to fight for what they had once shared, but the humiliating ache of being just another throwaway name in his story hung heavy. You're in a whirlwind, Ethan. I can't keep up, she finally said, the weight of it all pressing down on her. You have to decide what you want. Ethan's expression shifted, and she saw the flicker of realization. But that's just it. You are the life I want, not the stardom or the fame, you Jenna. In that blurry moment, she felt everything crack open like a door slowly easing apart. Maybe their story wasn't over. Maybe she didn't have to vanish entirely from his world. Taking a deep breath, Jenna looked at him, uncertainty still mingling with a glimmer of hope. Then let's find a way to make it work. A slow smile spread across his face, easing the tension in her heart. I'll fight for that, I promise. Just as they stepped back into the light, the chaos swirled around them again, but this time it felt different. They were not just two people fighting against the tide, they were allies ready to carve a new path. The cameras clicked and the questions poured in again, but Jenna stood strong. The anxiety that had once gripped her heart slowly began to fade. With Ethan by her side, ready to face whatever came their way, they were no longer just parts of someone else's story. This was their narrative, messy, complicated, but undeniably real. Together, they would weave the threads of love and connection amid the flashing lights, ready to embrace their journey, whatever it may unfold. As they stepped into the spotlight together, they would write a new chapter in their lives, one that was not defined by fame, but rather the bond that anchored them through it all. And in that moment, Jenna felt lighter, buoyed by the sweetness of love and possibility, ready to embrace whatever the future held. Not him again, Jenna muttered under her breath, rolling her eyes with a force that could have powered a small town. As she sat across from Mia in their favorite cafe, the name echoed in her mind like a bad song stuck on repeat. Why? Mia exclaimed, practically bouncing in her seat. Ethan's new album is topping the charts. Jenna felt an unsettling twist in her stomach. She took a long sip of her lukewarm coffee, willing the bitterness to drown out the memories that surfaced. Ethan was no longer just her boyfriend. He was a global sensation, and that fame had transformed everything they once shared into a mere echo. Good for him, Jenna said, attempting to mask her feelings with a nonchalant shrug. Mia leaned in closer, concern creeping into her voice. Jenna, you can't still be upset about how things ended. Yeah, because he's been so busy being a superstar, Jenna shot back, her words sharper than intended. The frustration boiled inside her, a cocktail of nostalgia and anger, fueled by the whirlwind of emotions swirling around their shared past. Jenna couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan had left her behind, like a forgotten book on a shelf. She remembered their late-night talks and the way he used to make her laugh until her sides hurt. Now all she could think of was how completely he'd immersed himself in this new world, a dazzling, alluring world that felt alien to her. As if summoned by her thoughts, the door to the cafe swung open and a gust of energy swept through the place. A small crowd of excited fans surged inside, their animated chatter filling the air. Oh my God, one of them squealed. What? Jenna glanced over her shoulder reluctantly, and her heart sank as she saw him, the embodiment of everything that felt both familiar and foreign. There he was, Ethan, clad in a fitted leather jacket, his hair tousled just the right way, a shining smile plastered across his face like he had stepped straight out of a magazine. The moment he entered, the atmosphere shifted, electric and pulsing with elation. Jenna instinctively slouched in her seat, the weight of the world suddenly resting on her shoulders. The previous comfort of the cafe evaporated under the bright lights of his stardom. Just what I needed, she thought bitterly. Mia gushed, practically gliding toward the door, dragging Jenna along with her. Ethan was laughing and chatting with fans, a magnetic aura drawing everyone's attention. Mia whispered excitedly while Jenna fought the urge to bolt out the back door. Let's get out of here, Jenna said, finding her voice amid the chaos. Are you kidding? Mia insisted, grinning from ear to ear. Jenna shot back, panic flooding through her veins. I can't just waltz into his new life like I belong there. Then, as if the universe had conspired against her, Ethan's gaze shifted and landed right on her. His eyes lit up like a switch had been flipped, and Jenna felt time slow to a crawl. He called out, his voice cutting through the clamor, pulling her from the depths of her uncertainty. It felt like a lifeline tossed in a storm, and for a moment, hope surged within her. Hey, she replied weakly, nodding as he made his way toward her. The world around them melted away as he approached, his presence igniting a mix of warmth and anxiety. I didn't think you'd be here, he asked, genuine curiosity dancing in his expression. Fine, she stumbled, struggling to find her footing. He glanced around, the crowd threatening to swallow them whole. You look great, he said, a smile tugging at his lips. Thanks, Jenna muttered, unsure how to respond. The compliments felt like ghosts, echoes of a different time when words like that had weight, buried now under layers of doubt. Come on, I've missed you, Ethan said, sincerity shining through the chaos. It's been ages. The words hung in the air, and Jenna felt her heart clench. She missed him too, in ways that ached and fueled her desire to scream in equal measure. But facing him now was like staring into a mirror that only reflected fragments of a shattered past, the boy she'd once loved scattered in the confetti of his fame. I don't think this is the right place, Jenna replied, her voice barely above a whisper, feeling the eyes of onlookers boring into her. The uncomfortable spotlight would soon shift to them, and she knew what that would mean. Before she could withdraw further, a group of fans pushed forward. Ethan, they clamored around him, excitement buzzing in the air, and Jenna felt herself slipping back into the shadows. Ethan responded, the warmth turning into a cool mask of stardom as he posed for photos, charming as ever. As she watched him slip away from her, the pang of familiarity mixed with a simmering jealousy. Those were the moments they used to share alone, an excitement only they understood. Now it was all for the world to see. She blurted before she could stop herself, her voice trembling slightly. Finally breaking away from the crowd, Ethan turned back to her, brows furrowing. Of course I do, but you have to understand that this is a lot, she echoed. Seems like you made your choice. The hurt flickered across his face, and Jenna saw the shadows creeping in, shifting the light that had once defined them. No, he insisted, stepping closer, urgency sparking in his eyes. You're part of my life, and I don't want to lose you. Can we just, but before he could finish, a frenzied voice cut through the air. Ethan, the tone dripped with anticipation, and Jenna felt her heart drop like a stone, shattering the fragile moment they were trying to capture. Jenna snapped, her voice tinged with indignation. You don't owe me, Ethan. Jenna, please, let me explain, he urged, desperation swelling. Yet before he could gather his words, the cameras started to flash more fervently, each burst of light like a reminder of the chasm that had grown between them. This isn't the time, she said, her heart racing as she withdrew. Don't pull away, he said quietly, his tone softening. Stay with me. Their eyes locked, the world around them fading once more, but Jenna's heart ached with doubts. How could she stand here exposed, knowing that he was thrust into the limelight while she clung to shadows? Every time I try to reach out, it feels like you're miles away, she confessed, the vulnerability spilling forth. Ethan interrupted, the heat of his words wrapping around her. You were my inspiration. They were standing at the edge of something profound, but before they could dive in, the crowd surged forward again. Jenna felt suffocated, the air thickening with the weight of unanswered questions. He asked urgently, desperation filling his eyes. For a moment, the flicker of hope rekindled in her chest. Just to talk, he coaxed, stepping closer again, but the thrumming buzz of the crowd only heightened her anxiety. She snapped, emotions colliding like crashing waves. I can't just pretend everything is okay when it feels so wrong. Maybe I'm still trying to figure out what I want, he said quietly, the tension in his voice trembling with sincerity. Jenna felt a rush of emotions, the anger, the confusion, the ache of longing all wrapped together in that one moment. But it was a crowded space, and out of nowhere a sense of reality struck her like a tidal wave. She finally whispered, glancing back at the media eager for the latest scoop. Okay, Ethan nodded, his relief evident but tinged with uncertainty. As they stepped outside, the sun poured down upon them, but she felt the weight of the eyes watching their every move. They navigated past cameras and reporters, and adrenaline coursed through her veins. Once they reached a quieter corner, the chaos receded into the distance, and Jenna realized how much she craved this moment alone with him. Okay, let's talk, she said, crossing her arms defensively. Ethan took a deep breath, emotions flaring in his eyes. Look, I know I've changed, and I know life has become complicated, but the truth is you forgot how to be you, Jenna interjected, the words pouring out in a rush. Ethan's voice trembled, the raw honesty in his eyes catching her off guard. This is real for me, you matter, Jenna challenged, intensity igniting within her. Ethan stepped closer, the air thickening with tension. I want to find a way back, but I can't do it without you standing by my side. I want to create something new. In that moment, Jenna felt an undeniable shift. Everything she had held onto so tight began to loosen, hope replacing the weight of despair. She asked softly, vulnerability replacing the edge of her anger. With a nod, Ethan reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining, a bond rekindling between them. As they stood together in that quiet corner, the world around them began to blur again. For the first time, she could see a new path unfolding, a chance to reclaim what had once been lost, and perhaps even to forge something new amidst the chaos. Jenna asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but determination shone through. Together, Ethan affirmed, the warmth of his hand reassuring her that they were ready to face what lay ahead. In that moment, surrounded by the remnants of chaos, she felt lighter, and the storm brewing inside her finally fell quiet. They didn't need to hide. They could write their own story, one that was no longer defined by fame and expectations, but rather by the bond that had weathered the distance. As they stepped back into the sunlight hand in hand, they were no longer just two people on a shaky tightrope. They were partners ready to embrace whatever came their way, fueled by love's resilience and the courage to face the unpredictable journey ahead. They were ready to make a life together, and this time they would write it for themselves. Not him again, Jenna muttered under her breath when she overheard Mia raving about Ethan. At that moment, she couldn't help but roll her eyes. The cafe they frequented felt almost like a prison, and hearing his name again was the last thing she needed. Come on, Jenna. He's incredible now. Did you see his new music video? Mia exclaimed, practically bouncing in her seat. Jenna stirred her coffee absently, feeling the familiar mix of irritation and sadness welled up within her. The warmth of the cup felt like a meager shield against memories she couldn't shake. Ethan had been her first love, the boy who made her laugh and feel alive. But now he was just a fleeting picture on a magazine cover, basking in the glow of fame. How could she reconcile the extraordinary man he had become with the boy who'd once serenaded her in the middle of a quiet park? Wonderful for him, Jenna replied, trying to keep her voice light. Mia asked, her voice almost pleading now. You both had something real. Because real isn't something you can just turn off and on, Mia, Jenna shot back. The flames of resentment danced behind her eyes. He left all that behind, Just then the door swung open with a rush, and a gust of cool air swept through the cafe, carrying with it shouts from two girls outside. Look, Jenna's stomach dropped at the sound. She instinctively turned in her seat and her breath caught in her throat. Ethan stepped into the cafe, a magnetic smile stretched across his face, the sort that made the whole room shift its focus in one fell swoop. Paparazzi and fans surged forward, a wave of excitement racing toward him. Ethan. The crowd clamored, their voices a symphony of admiration. Someone's got a busy day, Mia said with a knowing grin. Jenna's heart raced in her chest and she shook her head. No way, I can't just walk up like I belong there. Just think of the memories, Mia coaxed, nudging her. You have to see him. Yeah, a chance to get crushed under the weight of his fame, Jenna retorted. She could feel her heart pounding, a combination of fear and longing bubbling up to the surface. As if sensing her turmoil, Ethan caught her gaze from across the room and time seemed to freeze. His expression shifted, confusion flashing across his face, but when he recognized her, it melted into a warm, inviting smile. He called out, weaving through the throng of admirers and reporters. She felt her knees buckle. Oh God, she whispered, paralyzed as the room buzzed with frenetic energy. Mia urged, eyes alight with excitement. You're not waiting for him to come to you. Before she could think twice, Jenna stood, navigating the chaos of fans and camera flashes. Each step felt monumental, a battle against her own uncertainty. Ethan smiled, drawing closer, but behind that warmth was something else, something deeper, something that spoke of longing and unfinished stories. Hi, she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Suddenly, the gravity of their past echoed in her ears like a distant song. Memories flooded back, soft glances, late-night laughter, the sort of magic that felt genuine. Wow, it's been a while, Ethan said, his eyes bright, but there was a flicker of something else, vulnerability tangled with excitement. Thanks, Jenna replied, the compliment weighing heavier than everyone else's eyes combined. You look. It's a lot, he admitted, glancing nervously at the reporters beginning to circle like hungry wolves. Can we find a quieter place to talk? They stood on the precipice of something familiar, and Jenna could feel the world around them dissolve momentarily. But then a shout broke through the stillness. Ethan, a momentary panic draped over her. Ethan glanced back nervously, the reminders of his celebrity world crashing into their reunion. No, we're just, Jenna stepped back, her heart racing. I can't, she stammered before she turned to leave, the weight of expectation suffocating her. Wait, Ethan called, a hint of desperation in his voice, but it felt too late. As she retreated from the chaos, a surge of emotions fought for dominance. Seriously, Mia chastised, coming up beside her. I can't do this, Jenna said, her voice trembling. Mia exclaimed, I didn't ask for this, he's not just a person anymore. Mia's eyes softened. You owe it to yourself to at least talk. They stood there, caught in a moment where everything felt like a turning point. Jenna could feel the weight of her fears starting to dissolve like the mist in the morning sun. Maybe walking away wasn't the answer. Before she could change her mind again, she turned back, taking a deep breath. As she stepped out into the street, the light was blinding and the buzz of the crowd crashed in like surf against rock. She called, her voice rising above the chaos. He turned, his expression a mix of surprise and hope. She could see the crowd fading away again, the two of them existing in a precious bubble amid the madness. He rushed toward her, his smile brightening the cacophony of flashes and voices. I'm not running away, Jenna declared, heart pounding. But we need to talk, without the cameras, without the atmosphere of, he said, understanding flooding his voice. There's a quieter park nearby. As they walked, the crowd thinned, letting them breathe a little easier. The chaos started to fade behind them, but Jenna felt the weight of their past creeping up again. I don't want to be a memory of your old life, Ethan. Jenna, I want you in my present, trust me. The bright lights, sure they're there, but they don't mean anything compared to what we had. His words caught her off guard. she asked, vulnerability creeping into her voice as they ducked into the park, the trees shielding them from the distant noise. Every word, Ethan said, his eyes serious. But let's be real, this isn't easy. I can handle anything, Ethan. You matter more than anyone, Jenna, but the truth is a sudden commotion brought their conversation to a halt. Shouts erupted just outside the park gates, drawing Ethan's attention. Jenna felt her heart drop. Ethan, a familiar voice shouted from the crowd. Just as they turned, Ethan tensed. The media broke through the crowd's barrier, cameras snapping furiously, arms reaching in for questions. Ethan, are you dating Jenna? The noise crashed over them, drowning out everything else. Ethan's eyes met Jenna's, panic and frustration mingling there. She could see the gears turning in his head, the sheer weight of expectation that bore down on him, and a surge of realization washed over her. Jenna, he said firmly, the sound barely cutting through the chaos. I want to face this together. And with that, Jenna knew she stood at a crossroads, one path leading into the bright, unknown future of his fame, the other leading back into the shadows she had long fought against. The questions loomed like specters, swirling around them, taunting her with uncertainty. Could they really navigate this, and even if they could, was it worth it? Before she could answer, Ethan stepped in front of her, resolute. His voice cut through the chaos. The crowd quieted, eyes sharp and focused. As Jenna held her breath, it was clear they were on the brink of something vital, a moment that could transform everything. But then, as she looked into his eyes, a new wave of panic hit her. Would this be a declaration of love or some kind of expose? Would it turn into entertainment for the masses, or would they manage to carve out a slice of reality for themselves? Before she could grasp it, Ethan lifted his chin and declared, Jenna is more than just a name. She's my rock, my past, and a vital part of my future. I want everyone to know that. Gasps rippled through the crowd, the energy shifting sharply. Cameras flashed, documenting every second as the weight of his words settled in the air. And at that moment, Jenna felt everything shift. The walls of her heart widened, allowing hope to seep through the cracks, even as uncertainty clawed at her gut. But then another shout sliced through the silence. What about your image? And just like that, the tension crashed in on itself. Now, Jenna stood at the edge of a precipice, the future teetering like a delicate flower ready to bloom or wither under the spotlight of fame, emotions raging unchecked. Ethan's choice echoed in her heart, leaving her breathless, and as they stood there together in that harrowing moment, their lives were forever entwined against a backdrop of uncertainty and flashing lights. But as the crowd pressed closer, the question lingered. Could they find their place in a world that seemed so determined to tear them apart? In an instant, everything hung in the balance. Would their love withstand the glare? With the world watching, Jenna could feel the moment shift, crack, and break into something unimaginable, leaving her wondering what would happen next. The turning point had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again.